Navigating ISF Submission, Hazardous Materials. Welcome to another episode of our Customs Brokerage 101 series. In today's video, we will be discussing ISF submission for hazardous materials. Hazardous materials, also known as dangerous goods, require special handling and compliance measures when it comes to importation. Understanding the ISF submission process for hazardous materials is crucial for importers and customs brokers. So, let's jump right in. When it comes to ISF submission for hazardous materials, there are several important considerations to keep in mind. Let's explore these considerations in more detail. Classifying hazardous materials. The first consideration is to accurately classify the hazardous materials. Hazardous materials are divided into different classes, such as explosives, gases, flammable liquids, toxic substances, and more. Importers must determine the proper classification for the hazardous materials being imported. This classification is essential for completing the ISF accurately and ensuring compliance with the appropriate regulations. Determining UN numbers. Complying with hazardous materials regulations. Hazardous materials are assigned UN numbers, which are internationally recognized identification numbers. UN numbers help identify the specific hazardous materials and provide critical information for customs authorities. Importers must determine the UN numbers for the hazardous materials they are importing and include them in the ISF. Importing hazardous materials requires compliance with various regulations, both at the national and international levels. Importers must be familiar with the hazardous materials regulations of the country of importation and ensure that all necessary permits, licenses, and certifications are obtained. Compliance with these regulations is crucial for ISF submission and the safe importation of hazardous materials. Safety data sheets, SDS. Safety data sheets, SDS, play a vital role in the ISF submission for hazardous materials. SDS provide detailed information about the hazards, handling, storage, and emergency response procedures for the hazardous materials. Importers must obtain and review the SDS for each hazardous material being imported. The information from the SDS should be accurately communicated in the ISF filing. Hazard communication requirements. Effective hazard communication is essential for the safe importation of hazardous materials. Importers must ensure that all required labels, markings, and placards are applied to the packaging and containers of the hazardous materials. These labels, markings, and placards communicate the specific hazards associated with the materials and assist customs authorities in identifying and handling the materials appropriately. Security measures for hazardous materials. Hazardous materials require additional security measures due to their inherent risks. Importers must implement appropriate security measures to prevent unauthorized access, theft, or tampering with the hazardous materials. Collaborating with transport providers experienced in handling hazardous materials and complying with security regulations is crucial to meet ISF submission requirements. Emergency response information. Importers must be prepared with emergency response information for hazardous materials. This includes providing contact information for emergency responders, submitting emergency response plans, and ensuring that the appropriate measures are in place to handle any potential incidents involving the hazardous materials. Having a well-defined emergency response plan is crucial for ISF submission and the safe importation of hazardous materials. Consideration 8. Compliance with international standards. Importing hazardous materials requires compliance with international standards, such as those established by the United Nations, UN, and the International Maritime Organization, IMO. These standards provide guidelines for the safe transportation and handling of hazardous materials. Importers must ensure compliance with these standards when preparing the ISF and importing hazardous materials. These considerations collectively determine the ISF submission requirements for hazardous materials. Importers and customs brokers must work diligently to ensure compliance with the applicable regulations, secure the necessary permits and certifications, and accurately communicate the hazardous nature of the materials in the ISF. That wraps up our discussion on ISF submission for hazardous materials. We hope you found this information helpful and insightful. Join us in our upcoming videos as we continue to explore various aspects of customs brokerage and international trade. Thank you for watching and see you next time.